Hey guys, guess what? Preseason's done, which means the real action is this Thursday. Welcome back for another episode. And just to kick things off, remember, I have a great partnership with SeatGeek. You get $20 off of your first purchase if you use promo code Caniac Reports, all one word. It really is a great way to try and save some money on some tickets, whether that's to the home opener, that's possibly this Thursday, or a comedy show or a live concert. It doesn't have to be just hockey. So again, great deal. Another thing too, for you listening on Apple Podcasts for our episodes, just want to let you know that there is the Caniac Report Plus, which lets you listen to these episodes ad free. Just trying to provide another way for you guys to listen to episodes, especially for those that do not like listening to ads at all. And I know there are people that don't. So the last thing I do want to talk about is that I have a survey going on. It's lasting until October 17th, even though that might be extended, might not. But for the time being, it's just October 17th about the podcast. And if you can fill it out, that'd be great. You can find the survey in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube, and also in the episode notes as well if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or whatever. And if you are listening to us on wherever you get your podcast, please be sure to leave a rating and a review. It really does help me out. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and like the video, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And yeah, so since our last episode, we actually have quite a few bit of news, both NHL and the Hurricanes. Quite a bit. And I can tell when it comes to stuff around the league, it seems like it's deadline time on getting all these restricted players signed. RFA specifically is what I'm talking about. And the first piece of news is Luke Hughes. So we will be seeing Luke Hughes for opening night because we are facing the Devils, obviously. But he signs a 7-year, $9 million contract with the Devils. We'll see how that contract turns out. Do I think Luke Hughes is an excellent defenseman? Yes, but only I would say like skating, he's really good at. He's good at making the smart plays, smart passes, but I still don't think he's good enough in certain areas. And I think those areas are on the defensive side of things and also on the physicality side of things. The guy just does not hit. That is not part of his game. And you can even say the same when it comes to Jack and Quinn Hughes as well. So 7 years, $9 million contract. That was a stalemate for very long. But apparently, from what I heard from Elliot Friedman, it kind of came down to a night last week. I think it was like on a Tuesday night where they were able to finalize a contract. So 7 years, $9 million. We'll see what happens. And it sounds like New Jersey might be putting former Hurricane Dougie Hamilton on the trade block. Might be. Because you look at their defense now with the extension of Hughes, or I guess you could say signed because he hasn't really extended. That's a lot of money on the back end for your D. So the next thing is Nico Mikula. And he extended on an 8-year, $5 million contract with the Panthers. I'm telling you, man, if he signed and was winning Stanley Cups with another team other than probably Dallas, Nashville, or Vegas, he probably would be earning around probably 7 or 8 million. But again, taxes do play a huge part into this, and that's part of the reason why he was able to get his contract money value down to probably around 5 million. So, to me, he's one of the best defensemen that Florida has, and he might be needed. And the reason why I say it might be needed even more is just because if you looked at the preseason games between Florida and Tampa, oof, Aaron Ekblad, he really got he got hit good. Let's just say that, and he did not return for the last preseason game. So Again, I know I'm not talking about the Hurricanes here, but Aaron Ekblad, that's another player to keep an eye on for Florida because we know they're already down with Kachuk and Barkov. So if they're down with Aaron Ekblad too, that's going to really, really suck for Florida. But that's the reason why I talk about this stuff, because this type of stuff can affect the Hurricane, whether it's in a good way or in a bad way. And the next thing is Jackson LaCombe from Anaheim. He's another defenseman. Lots of defensemen getting signed. He extended on an 8-year, $9 million contract with Anaheim. And when I saw this contract, I was a bit surprised because Pat Verbeek, who is the general manager of Anaheim, he is known as one of the most tough negotiators in the NHL. And obviously, a huge hallmark of him having that reputation was because of the Mason McTavish type of contract. Well, it didn't take long for him to extend Lacombe. So he obviously sees something in Lacombe that he really, really likes. You can tell he considers him as a core player. And I will admit, watching Jackson Lacombe, I do think he's a very, very good defenseman, like Quinn Hughes, like Luke Hughes, like Mikula. Again, I'm not saying they're not all the same players. It's just these are good players. That's what I'm trying to say. So good for Lacombe for getting that huge extension, and he's definitely going to be a part of this Anaheim team for quite some time. And the last thing, again, lots of extensions around the NHL. You can tell this is like deadline time because regular season is just around the corner. You have Philip Gustafson, the goalie for Minnesota. He extended on a 5-year, $6.8 million contract with the Wild. So to me, that is a goalie who I actually think is a very, very good goalie. And I think that's actually a very, very good contract, not just for the player, but also for the team. So we'll see what Minnesota does. I really like the team Minnesota has. Obviously, you have Kirill Kaprizov. They got that extension done. Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, Joel Eriksson Ek. I think this is a very good Minnesota team. And also there's Brock Faber too. So that's kind of it for NHL news. But yeah, quite a bit of stuff. Now, obviously, we talk about the Hurricanes here. Some news came out since our last episode. One of them is the Hurricanes signed Giovanni Smith to a 1-year, $775,000 contract. So it was the bare minimum contract. But you know what? Good for Smith. He played his butt off in these preseason games, and you know what? I think he's earned the contract. He is a big physical guy. Does he have lots of skill? No, he does not. But he's definitely one of those Jordan Martinook, William Carrier type of players where, yeah, he doesn't have lots of skill, but he brings it every night with tons of work effort, and he's willing to throw punches too. I kind of like that in a player. Now, is he good at it? That's another conversation. But since he is willing to do that, and since we don't really have lots of players that do that, I admire that. I admire having a guy that is willing to kind of throw the gloves down with another player. I really, really do. And I'm happy that he has signed, playing, most likely going to be playing with Chicago. But this is an 82 game season. There's going to be injuries. Who knows? Maybe we see him for a game or two. I don't expect him to see much NHL action, but regardless, I think that's a good signing. The next piece of news here is Frank Saravelli. He tweeted saying that the Hurricanes will not be signing Carter Hart or Michael McLeod. Now, obviously, people have their opinions on the whole trial thing, and not only on the whole trial thing, but also on the players in general because of the trial thing. It really is a complex situation. So, for those of you who did not want to see these players on this team, well, you know what? Congratulations. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, yeah, Hurricanes would not be signing either of those two players. Again, as players, I'm specifically talking about the player performance, not the person here. But Carter Hart, I would have loved to sign him, even though he probably wasn't going to sign here. Michael McLeod, honestly, with us not signing him, I'm fine with that just because where was he going to fit? That was my biggest thing. Now, obviously, Tyson Jost got claimed off of waivers, but even then, you already still have five centers with Aho, Jordan Stahl, Stankoven, KK, and Jankowski. It was going to be very tough for him anyway. So, this to me doesn't really affect anything on the Hurricanes roster. It just doesn't. And the next thing that I want to talk about, I've been looking forward to recapping this because Friday, as the last episode was released, that was it. That was the day. The NHL Face-Off documentary season 2 came out, and the first episode I watched because they released all the episodes. I was thinking they might release only one episode. It'll continue through like weekly increments or whatever. But they released all the episodes, and yes, the first episode I watched was the Seth Jarvis documentary. And for those of you who have not seen it, I recommend highly recommend you watch that episode. I think that was a great episode of Seth Jarvis. I was to me the only thing I and this is more of a wish, it's not really a criticism. I kind of wish they talked a little bit about the return because they do talk a little bit about Rantanen, obviously, but in that episode, I kind of wish they talked about the return the Hurricanes got for Rantanen. Like, I will again. I know it's centered on Jarvis. It's just since they already kind of opened up that can of worms with Rantanen, I was kind of hoping they will kind of close that with, okay, the Hurricanes got Logan Stankoven plus the picks and all, obviously, and stuff like that. But they didn't do that. To me, that's the only kind of wish. Is it? It might be somewhat of criticism because again they kind of did open up that can of worms with the whole Rantanen thing. But regardless, I think it was a great episode. And Seth Jarvis, he obviously talked about his mental health with self confidence, and you know what? All of us deal with that at some point, and I thought it was just really good documentary. It makes me love him even more. And I can tell you, it was already going to be a good episode after the first few minutes of him explaining his diet. Oh, I love Seth Jarvis, really do. But I highly encourage you to watch it. I know I kind of said some spoilerish things, but considering it's a documentary, most of this stuff you probably already know. But yeah, great episode. Highly recommend it. The next thing I want to talk about, and this came out in the latest Kane's Corner Adam Gold podcast episode that he released after the last preseason game against Nashville. Apparently, he said K'Andre Miller might not be able to play in the home opener because he talked to Rod Brind'Amour. And I will admit, from hearing that, I was like, man, I would have loved to see K'Andre Miller, the guy that we signed, what, 8 years at $7.5 million contract to. Would have loved to see him for the home opener. Really would have, but regardless, even though I'd love to see him for the home opener, I do agree. Listen, you gotta wait till he's 100% ready because it's more long term with him than it is short term. It's not like this is a 2-year contract. This is an 8-year contract. At a contract that's to me, I think is already a little bit considered high. But again, we'll see how he does, and if he does become like that Brady Shea type of player that we got from the Rangers, well, you know what? That becomes a steal of a contract. So I was disappointed that he might not play in the home opener. So just letting you guys aware, if you guys don't listen to Adam Gold's Kane's Corner podcast, he might not be playing at the home opener. But I wouldn't. Again, he did get that information from Brind'Amour himself. But I guess we'll see once we actually see it, is what I'm going to say there. So the last thing that I want to talk about, this happened today as I was recording, is the Hurricanes put Caden Primeau on waivers and claimed a goalie in Brandon Basu, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Now, again, this is pure speculation. But I think the reason why they claimed Brandon Basu is because they, I think, if you remember when they put Tyson Jost on waivers, he was claimed by Nashville. I think they were a little bit worried of putting a goalie that they did get in a trade from Montreal, like Caden Primo, down through waivers and have him being claimed. So I think most likely this is an insurance policy just in case Caden Primo does get picked up. So I really hope Primo doesn't get picked up because I thought he was promising in his preseason games. But let's say he doesn't get picked up, then you have even more goalie depth. And you can never have too much goalie depth. It's just you don't want to see all that depth playing in the NHL. It's fine if they play in the AHL, but if we have to play Brandon Busey in the NHL, oh boy, is that a little bit of a concern right there. But we'll see what happens with Caden Primo. I hope he clears waivers. Really, really do. But I understand the Hurricanes of claiming him, especially if the reason is to kind of choose him as that insurance policy just in case Primo does get picked up. Kind of like what happened with Tyson Jost. So that's it for Hurricanes news and lots of news in general. So I'm going to get to a sponsor here, and then I'm going to recap the Nashville game, and then I have a little bit of a bonus thing after the game. So, yeah. So here is the sponsor. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks, and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks, with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your players' instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right, so the Nashville game, the last preseason game. And this was basically a dress rehearsal for the regular season, for not just the Hurricanes, but for both teams, because both teams pretty much played their entire NHL roster. Now, obviously, Miller, Slavin, they did not play this game, so you had Legault and Miller kind of filling in their places. But there are a few things I wanted to see. Again, kind of like the other preseason games where they've already played. Stankoven, how good can he be as the second line center? Nikishin was another player I wanted to see. And Stankoven, now he was mainly going up against Ryan O'Reilly, who's considered one of the best faceoff men, not just for the Predators, but in the NHL. And while he did struggle, I'm giving him just a little bit of leeway, not much, but just a little bit of leeway just because he is going up against that player, and it is in a pointless game. Preseason really is pointless, in my opinion. The biggest thing is don't get hurt, even though I will get to the overtime hit. Trust me, I will. So, first period, I thought it was pretty much an even period throughout. I didn't see anything special from the Hurricanes. I didn't really see anything special from the Predators, but we did have a couple of goals. We had Kochetkov passing the puck to Stahl, which so he got an assist, but it created a 2-on-1 chance, and Stahl was able to pass it to Martinook, who was able to get a goal, making it 1-0 for the Hurricanes. Really nice play there. Just a natural 2-on-1 play. And then you have Jonathan Marshall scoring on a 5-on-3 power play. And that was a little bit frustrating to see just because you had Aho taking a delay of game penalty. And I will admit, I didn't like that. But with that, with me saying that, again, it's preseason. I'd rather you get all of your rustiness out on a preseason game than the actual thing, which is regular season starting Thursday night. So 1-1 heading into the second period. And I thought the second period, out of all the periods, was probably the worst period for the Hurricanes, I thought, because I thought Nashville was all over the Hurricanes, especially that Tyson Jost line. They were causing the Hurricanes problems. And I would say probably the best line for the Hurricanes in that game is probably the Stahl line, which is always good. I'm telling you, they work their butts off, whether it's preseason or not. That's a good line. And I actually thought the Stankoven line at moments played pretty good. Aho line, I thought, could be better, could be worse. But again, I'm not faulting any of these players just because, yes, it is preseason. Biggest thing is do not get hurt, because what really matters is your regular season performance, not preseason performance. Yes, some performances do matter to certain players, but overall, it is preseason. So Tyson Jost, he eventually scores for Nashville, and we had Kochetkov in net for this game. And I would say out of all these goals, that's probably the goal he kind of needs to have. It was a bit of a rebound goal. I think that was on him and Jankowski, to be honest, because Jankowski was trying to defend Jost there. But man, Nashville's Jost line was doing so good. I think that was their best line that game. And Jost was able to score. So a little bit of a revenge factor there for Tyson Jost, his first game versus the Hurricanes, because he was literally put on waivers 2 days ago. So obviously Nashville is up 2-1 heading into the third period. And overall, it is a little bit discouraging to see the Hurricanes' performance up to them. But I actually thought in the third period, Canes did play a little bit better. And it somewhat showed with Jarvis scoring. It was obviously a turnover that Aho got, and he was able to pass it to Jarvis, who was all alone in front of UC Saros. It was to go forehand, backhand for the goal. Nice goal there of Jukin Saros, who's a very good goalie, as we all know. And it's 2-2 heading into the overtime. And this was the overtime where I think there's a lot of talk around, because the biggest thing wasn't really the goal, it was the hit. Joakim Kemell hit Andrei Svechnikov. And I know there are quite a few Hurricane fans out there who said that they didn't like it. Now, to me, I'm actually fine if you say you didn't like it, but the reason might be different than probably maybe mine or others. So let's say you didn't like that hit, and the reason was, well, I didn't like it because it was a preseason game. These games don't matter. I understand that. I completely do understand that. And that was kind of my opinion. I was like, I don't really like the hit just because it's pointless. Why are we going for these big hits? Why are we trying to play like the Florida series or the two Florida games preseason? Like, we should not be having that at all. Just should not. But I think the hit itself, it was clean. It just was. There's no contact to the head whatsoever. Svechnikov was looked down at a glance, and he found himself getting hit straightforward into the chest. It was a clean hit as it could be. Now, in real time, it did look dangerous. I will admit, it did look a little bit dangerous, but if you actually examine that hit, nothing wrong with the hit itself. Just wasn't. But obviously, Aho kind of found offense to that, and he started whacking at Joakim Kemell. And apparently, after the game, I could be wrong about this, but I think Aho was kind of speaking dirty to him in Finnish, because they're both Finnish players. But I could be wrong about that. But obviously, Aho got a misconduct penalty, which led to a 4-on-3 power play for Nashville. And the same play that hits Fetch, he scores on a one-timer. So Nashville wins it. And at that point, I was like, thank goodness, because overtime in the preseason wastes even more time, in my opinion, because I want to get to the real thing. And the real thing starts this Thursday. And that's it for the Hurricanes when it comes to preseason. Training camp's done. Preseason's done. Everything that the Hurricanes have worked for is now leading up to this moment against Nashville this Thursday night. So I am excited for this game. Really, really am. I think it's going to be fun. It's home opener. I hope us Canes fans, it's going to be a sellout. Probably is. And we're going to bring the house down. And I hope the Hurricanes wins, because if you guys remember, the last home opener last year, they faced Tampa, and obviously we knew how that game went. The Hurricanes lost that game. I believe it was 4-1 was the score. Yeah, not a good game. So hopefully against New Jersey, a team that I do think is a little bit easier to beat comparing to a team like Tampa, even though they probably have a couple of suspensions again from those two games with the Panthers. They're still a really good team. So regardless, I think, even though I think Nashville is a very, very good team, I think Carolina, I think they can beat New Jersey. I really, really do think they can this Thursday. And we'll see what happens. But I do want to talk about my 3 questions real quick. This is the bonus thing I was talking about. But 3 questions heading into opening night. And I think if they can solve these 3 questions, then I legitimately think that they can win the Stanley Cup. Now, this is not me saying I don't think they can win. It's just the fact that there are some questions heading into this regular season. So to me, the number 3 question is, can goaltending be good and, I capitalize the word "and" here, healthy? The reason why I'm saying it in that type of structure is because I'm basically saying, can Kochetkov be good and can Anderson be healthy? Because if those 2 goalies can be playing at like a 920 save percentage type of performance, then that's going to be huge trouble for the opposing team. And Florida, even though they're back-to-back to Stanley Cup champs, they're dealing with some injuries right now. So even though I'm not going to discount them altogether, I think it'd be foolish to. It is worth noting they do have very big injuries that could hamper them from going back to back to back. So, can goaltending be good and healthy? That is my number 3 question. My number 2 question, can our defense be as good as advertised? And the reason why I say that is because, listen, we know our defense is good, obviously. We know that. But from this past year, with Brent Burns and Orlov leaving, you add in Nikishin, you add in Miller, there are some reasonable questions. Can those players turn out to be very, very good? Because we know the potential of both of those defensemen. Heck, Miller, we know how good he can be. I thought he was probably one of the best defensemen that played against us in our playoff series against the Rangers a few years ago. So can he live up to be that? Can Nikishin live up to be that defenseman that is known to be probably one of the top defensemen in the NHL? Now, that's lots of pressure. I'm not saying he's going to do it right off the gate, and I think we are already seeing the signs that he can't do that right off the gate. But can it be very, very good? Because now we have some youthfulness. Brent Burns, Orlov, they were veterans that left the team. Now we have that youthfulness resting in Nikishin and Miller. And I guess you could say another thing too is, can Miller live up to that contract that he has? Because it is a big contract. So we'll see how our defense does with those 2 new players. I know Nikishin played in the playoffs, but this is the restart that he needs, because he was thrown into the fire. And with him finally playing like actual regular season games, I think is going to really, really help them. And like I've said in previous episodes, with Nikishin, I just think it's just going to take time. I really think it is. I'm not going to write off saying he's a bad skater or anything. He just, to me, needs time after being put into the fire in the playoffs. And then my number one question. My number one. Can Stankoven, and I think he can Stankoven be our second line center? Because you look at our forwards, and I love the addition of Ehlers. I really, really do. But getting him was not a need. It was not. Getting him was basically like, hey, we have a player that wants to come to Carolina, is a player that they have talked to for quite some time. Ehlers and the Hurricanes have a pretty good relationship before the signing even happened. So we knew Ehlers had a bit of a desire of possibly coming to Carolina, and it's official. So basically, how I see that signing is, well, you can't turn away skill. And he represents that. One of the players, I'll say he's probably the top player that I cannot wait to see play in an actual regular season game, because Ehlers, he's a very good offensive weapon. He's going to make this team better, but he was not a need. And the need that we all know that obviously we need, no pun intended, is that second line center. And honestly, we know the strategy. Brendan Moore is going to implement this with Stankoven being tried as our second line center. And again, just from looking at the Nashville game, I actually thought the Stankoven Blake Svetch line was really, really good. And regardless that it was really good or not, my only caution I have with that line is you're playing, even now I know Svetchy's a big player. I'm not concerned with Svetch. It's just Stankoven and Blake. Those are two very small players. Stankoven more because he's like 5'8", even in skates probably. And Blake, even though he's a little bit taller, he's not much taller than Stankoven. So size is the only thing I caution about with that line, but that line can be scary, scary good. And if Stankoven can bring all those things that is needed as a second line center, and point production is included in that. It really, really is. But if he can bring all that stuff, then you could say we've solved our second line center problem. But again, kind of like with what I said with Nikishin, it's going to take time. Only time can tell with this stuff. And I would say a good amount of time. If you were to ask me, what is a good amount of time? So I would say the best amount of time is probably, I would say some people might say a smaller amount of games, which I'm fine with. But I would say probably let's see how they play going into Thanksgiving break. Then I think we get a good idea. Or maybe beginning of November or into the holidays in December. We don't know. But the biggest thing is time. And I think Thanksgiving break is a good estimated time, considering I think around 80% of the teams that are in the playoffs by Thanksgiving break usually are in the playoffs. So I do think that is a decent amount of time just to give Stankoven as our second line center, seeing where Nikishin is on the back end. But you know what? This is going to be a fun season. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. It's going to be brutal at points because obviously Hurricanes are probably going to be going through a couple of losing streaks, a couple of late nighters. I mean, obviously with the regular season starting, obviously right off the bat, starting next week, the Hurricanes are going to be going on that big, long NC State road trip. So a lot of late night games. I just can't wait. I hope the Canes can do it. I really do. And the regular season isn't really a problem with the Hurricanes. We know because they do make the playoffs. They've made the playoffs for 7 straight seasons. And this is a team that I thought overachieved last season. And I thought we got better this season, just looking on paper. So I can't wait to see what this Canes team at its fullest extent of being healthy, obviously, can do. Very, very excited. Obviously, the biggest question comes in the playoffs, but regular season, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I have no doubt about it. But the biggest question, can they win it all in the playoffs? Can they get past the Final Four? That is the biggest question. So that's it for this episode. And I will be at the home opener for Thursday. And it's going to be fun. I really cannot wait. Another thing, too, let's give you guys a bit of a sneak peek for Friday's episode. Since it's the start of the regular season, it's going to be start of a little bit of a new era for the Caniac Report. So you might see or hear someone new. So stay tuned for the next episode, which will be coming out Friday.